Châteauguiraud, the Grand Vin. You have a direct sort of relation, visual relation between both. And I must say that this black color is really historic and really part of the history of Châteauguiraud. The Château Guiraud gets his name from the Guiraud family who bought the estate in 1766. And they were very different from the neighbors, from all the other owners of properties of the Sauternes area. Why? Because the Guiraud family were working people. They were not from the from the noble people. Were getting their patrimony from inheritance. Then they were not monarchists neither. So as they were not aristocrats, they were not monarchists. So they were defending the idea of a democracy in France, but it was in 1766, so a couple of decades before the French Revolution. So it was a bit too early to be openly for a republican France. And more, the thing is, they were Protestant and not Catholic. What? And this is why actually between Château d'Yquem, which is our immediate neighbor, you have some woods that actually have been planted by the Leucellus family to not see, the shame, of the Château Guiraud. Well, now they are very proud to be our neighbors, of course, and of course the relation with all the other chateaux is now much more relaxed. And Xavier Planty, managing the Château Guiraud since 1982, is also the president of the Union of Producers of Sauternes. And he really became, with the time, a reference in terms of sweet winemaking and in terms of botrytis. Botrytis is very important to us. That's the name of a fungus, Botrytis cinerea. That's the name of a fungus that is, to us, a bless, which is for any other normal, I would say, winemaker, it's a disaster. It's actually a tiny microscopic fungus that develops under the skin of the berries. And what makes the Sauternes area really magic is that there is a tiny cold water river running through the appellation. And this cold water river, when it meets the Garonne, that had time to warm up on its side, and when you have, especially in September and October, when you have some big difference gaps, temperature gaps between the nighttime temperature and the daytime temperature, you have lots of fog. And this fog, this humidity in the air, or this mist, is very favorable to the development of that fungus, of the botrytis, of the noble rot. So the noble rot will have two effects. One direct effect, which is when it develops, under the skin of the berry, it makes the skin so thin that the water can evaporate through the skin. So there is no puncture in the skin, so the juice stays fresh. There is no oxidation of the juice. So the first real and direct effect of botrytis is to give us a tiny amount of juice, but very rich in natural sugar. Because on the berries, when it starts to shrivel, actually the water gets out, but the sugar stays in. So all the sugar that you have in these wines, are absolutely natural. These are the natural sugars present in the berries from the very beginning. But the second effect, which is to us the real magic of botrytis, the second effect is that when it will start to develop, the plant will notice, it will feel that there is a fungus attacking the fruits, and the vine is a good mother, so it will want to defend the fruits and to protect them. So it will produce some defense elements that will be actually aroma precursors, and these aroma precursors, especially after the fermentation, will bring to the wine some flavors, some characteristics that you cannot find in the dry white wine. Remember the flavors of the G, that we had at the very beginning was more on the citrus, fresh fruit, some flowers as well. Here you have tropical fruit flavors. Petit Guiraud is really pineapple-ish. The Grand Vin of Chateau Guiraud is more on the mangoes, on the candied fruit, on the dried apricots. So all this complexity is really the gift that is given by the botrytis and by the reaction of the plant towards the presence of the botrytis in the fruit. So this is what makes this very tiny appellation, this very small area, so magic. And the name of Sauternes is known worldwide for this very typical aromatic complexity. At Chateau Guiraud, the extra signature on top of this is the freshness. Because to make a sweet wine, to make a Sauternes, well, there are some principles. Good location, right selection in the vineyard, that's good. You can make some sweet wine. But making a Chateau Guiraud is, let's say, another level of requirement. We have a wonderful terroir, 105 hectares, that's quite wide, huh? 105 hectares, that's about 250 acres. That's quite wide, but as I told you, most of the juice, have just evaporated from the berries. So the yield is very small. The selection must be also very strict, because we only need and we only can accept in the cellar the berries that have been concentrated at the right level. So we will send the pickers several times in the same rows, between 4 and 8 times depending on vintages, just to pick up the berries that have the right level of concentration in sugar, but also the right level of aromatic expression. Also, this combined to a very specific vineyard management, because the chateau is certified organic since the vintage 2011. And I must say that since the beginning of the conversion, which started in 1996, since the beginning of the conversion into organic, we could see a huge improvement of the purity of the expression, of the expression of that complexity. The wines are fresher, they get more tension, also because the botrytis develops a bit earlier, because there is nothing that prevents its development. We have two different sort of expression there. You see that, well, there's one wine that is brighter than the other one. This is the Petit Guiraud. What we want there with the Petit Guiraud is to have the aromatic signature of botrytis combined to a very high freshness. So this wine is not as complex as Chateau Guiraud for sure, but it has a beautiful freshness, and the complexity is really the one that is given by botrytis. So if you compare both, you have here a lower level of residual sugar, and so a lower level of complexity as well. But you have a beautiful freshness, and this Petit Guiraud, on a sunny afternoon like this, you just keep it in the ice, you just spend your day sipping it. That's a lovely afternoon. But it's also a very good way for your customers to get confident, with the name of Guiraud, with the freshness of the name Guiraud, associated with the name Guiraud, despite sometimes, the ideas, that can be associated with the name Sauternes. Because Sauternes, people will think, oh, that's a dessert wine, it's going to be a sticky one. No. Please, have a sip, give it a go. You will see that this wine is very fresh and refreshing. It's complex but not overwhelming. It's obviously sweet, but definitely not sticky. So this, with a seafood salad, for example, you can have it with some spicy food, you can have it just on its own, you can have it with some desserts, of course, as well. But please don't consider this Petit Guiraud or the Chateau Guiraud, don't consider it as a dessert-only wine. I know it's very often nicknamed, dessert wine here in the US, but essentially the most beautiful pairing and the most relevant experiences with these wines, to me, are to be made with some savory dishes. Absolutely. This 2003, for example, with some poultry, with a roasted chicken, for example, with veal, with even pork barbecue. You can also pair it with some spicy food. spicy food, it's very nice because it lowers a bit the burning effect of the spices. And on the other hand, so one thing, you can get more flavors of the dish and you keep all the complexity of the wine. So a real gastronomic experience. Real. So in these wines, when you know that you have a wine from the Chateau Guiraud, you know that you're going to have the freshness, the minerality that you experience first with the dry white wine. You will find it again there, and you will find it also in the 2003. You will see that your palate is still salivating. Your palate stays sharp. Good news, you can carry on drinking the wine, because if the wine is really too sweet, you have a sip and then you put the glass back on the table saying, very good, but that's it, you don't drink it. We want the wine to be enjoyable. It's too demanding to make these wines to know that there will be just a sip appreciated of this wine. It's very demanding for all people in the vineyard, in the cellars. So actually we do our best to make the wines enjoyable, to have people, keeping their smile, getting a real gastronomic and pleasurable experience. So this is what we want for Chateau Guiraud. You know now that I can speak quite a long time. Just one thing to say about the 2003 vintage. It was a heat wave in France, and I just saw that generally we send pickers, 4 to 8 times in the vineyard to pick up the berries at the right level of concentration. 2003 is an exception for this, and we needed to have a special derogation, special authorization from the AOC authorities from France, because the berries were perfectly mature. The botrytis were there but quite dormant because it was a bit too dry and it was a bit too warm. And then mid-September we started to have a little rain, and that little rain did really awake the botrytis, and it developed just in an explosive way. So actually we had to ask a special authorization to pick up most of the vintage wine, most of the crop at once. Actually we couldn't even send the pickers twice, because the development was so homogenic and so quick that actually there was no point sending the pickers again. So it's an exception in there, but 2003, even in these very warm vintage, you see that at Chateau Guiraud you will always get this freshness, this minerality. That's definitely the signature of our wines.
Just one question.